Welcome to a new week and a new season of the morning meeting. I'm Mark Halperin with Dan Turrentine, Sean Spicer. Dan's joining caused us to randomly identify the beginning of season two. So this is season two, episode one. The eve of the vice presidential debate might have been our big story, but our big story is actually the storm. The aftermath of Helene has caused both campaigns, both presidential campaigns, to alter their schedules. We're going to talk a lot about that today, as well as look at two new ads that I think you'll enjoy and find interesting. The vice president, late last night after her lid was on when she was in Las Vegas, she was supposed to spend another day there after a rally last night, changed her schedule, flying back to Washington, not to the region, but to Washington to have a briefing at FEMA tonight at 5:05 Eastern time. I predict that from the plane, you'll see photos and reports of how hard she's working on dealing with the local, state and local officials and federal officials. Donald Trump, unencumbered by incumbency, is going to the region. He'll be in Valdosta, Georgia, doing an event at 2 Eastern time where he'll deliver remarks and be curious to see if he is simply all about cheering for the people of the region or if he has a line of criticism for the administration. Governors of the affected states, with the exception of North Carolina, are Democrats, or Republicans rather, and at the same time, they need to stay on the good side of the administration because during a crisis, you want FEMA money to flow your way. And the best way to get that is to be nice to the administration. And so we'll see what happens there. The head of FEMA, Deanne Criswell, is in Eastern North Carolina today with Roy Cooper. The two vice presidential candidates are doing debate prep, and I don't believe doing anything public as far as I know. White House briefing is at 2, and the president is delivering remarks on the hurricane at 10:30 Eastern time. There's a bunch of Trump surrogate activity, including Bobby Kennedy in Pennsylvania with Dr. Phil. You can see that in the day book. So, Dan, welcome in. We'll start with you. Obviously, there's close coordination between FEMA, the White House, and the Harris campaign. If you're the Harris campaign, are you doing this day by day? In other words, today she ripped up her schedule. Can she go back to campaigning tomorrow, or does it depend? And if so, what does it depend on?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends. I think you can't completely shut your campaign down for the week. I think, Joe Biden is president too, so you kind of have you both can hit this. I think anytime you have an event like this, it's opportunity and risk. And I think, we've had two examples of this in the last few years. You had 1992 with Hurricane Andrew, where, George H.W. Bush and Lawton Childs got into a fight. Bill Clinton kind of swooped in as a candidate, was seen, hugging babies and the kind of consoler in chief. And then 2006 with Katrina, where, Governor Blanco and George W. Bush kind of got into arguments. Blanco looked weak and kind of, out of control. And then you had Haley Barbour across the border who looked calm and strong and in control. And so, given that Biden and Harris kind of ran on competency and the ability, to do stuff, and you have stuff like Afghanistan that pierced it, this is an opportunity for them to show results, to show that they can deliver, cell phone towers, et cetera. And so I think the Harris campaign, you need to look like you're paying attention. You hear people, you're delivering for them, but you can't shut your campaign down. You have to kind of be out there.
Sean, is it clear what the Trump message is besides "I care"? In other words, is there a line of criticism that he can engage in for the administration?
I think that's going to be difficult. Governor Cooper's out there saying that he's been in contact with the federal government. He's told the president he doesn't want him down there initially, which makes sense. I mean, it's all, largely photo ops, and you don't need the footprint and the security footprint of a president when emergency services need to get to people who need help. So I think that
let me stop. I'm sorry. Let's just stop you on that. Isn't Trump's security footprint now close to a president's?
But he's going into Georgia, and I think that's different. I mean, I'm not an expert on what has happened over the last 24 hours, but yeah. I think there's a little difference. I mean, the bottom line is, and again, we're speaking politically, so please, obviously,
I meant to say at the top. I'll say it for all of us. It's extremely devastating for people, not just loss of life and loss of property, but trauma as well. And the state and local officials are the ones who need to deal with it. And FEMA, not president. Go ahead.
Right. Well, not just that, but I don't want any of our comments to be strewn as not caring about the well-being of the people there. obviously that's paramount, but we're having a political discussion, and I don't want anyone to misinterpret that. That being said, I mean, I largely agree with Dan. I mean, part of it right now is the optics of it. There's a couple uniquenesses of it. Both Georgia and North Carolina are battleground states. Obviously, Georgia has a Republican governor. Trump's going there. You're going to see a little bit more activity out of North Carolina. But I think unless someone doesn't get something, and there's no signs that that's not the case right now, then you're not going to have the level of criticism that you have in the past. So to the nut of your question, I think they'll go there today. She'll get her briefings in Washington. The president will cover a little for her, which obviously makes more sense. It's what's expected. Trump will go to Georgia. And then unless something really devastating happens, weather related, natural disaster that further complicates the situation, I don't see either one of them really spending a ton of time down there. But I do think, again, being completely crass and political, I think that the question that's going to have is how might this affect early voting, et cetera.
Yeah, and
I think they'll both go. I don't know if they'll go together, but I think in the next 48 hours they'll announce that they're both going. Maybe she'll go to North Carolina and he'll go to Georgia later in the week or over the weekend. I think they have to go. It's pretty devastating. I think it'd be the norm, and I think not going after Trump goes takes a risk. For them, as I said, the message is clear. The message is we're competent, we're in touch with everybody, and I think they are so far. I've not seen a single thing in the coverage suggesting they're not all over it. The FEMA director seems very competent. I still wonder what Trump's message is. Can he have a negative frame, or is he just?
Why does he need? I mean, his message is.
Well, he doesn't. I did, but just to be clear, I don't think he does. I think if there were one, he'd be
right.
Attracted to it. But I think my point is, let me just say my point, and then you can go and then Dane go. I think this is a wash. I think they'll both do what they can do, and this is a wash. And in terms of who it affects in early voting, I don't think we know. I think you're right; it can affect it, but we don't know. So I think the whole thing's a wash. But it does paralyze them. They lose 1/40th of the remaining days. Yeah. All right, Sean, then Dave. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I actually agree with you 100%. I think this is a wash unless an outside incident further complicates this. They check their boxes, they both show they care, and they move on. And unless there's a critique, which you don't see from either governor, then I think that everything kind of moves on from now. The question, though, is I think it is important to sort of, you mentioned 1/40th of the time, you've also taken 2/7 of the states off the map, right? You got to be careful how you navigate near North Carolina and Georgia when it comes to where you go, what you do. You can't be fundraising there. There's a little bit of an ad issue. I mean, there's a lot of, you've not just taken time, you've taken a lot of real estate off of the board too.
I wonder, I haven't heard anything about negative ads being pulled.
The one thing to keep in mind is in both, Andrew and Katrina, it was the images 48, 72 hours later of people desperately saying we need help, right? TV crews got to them. TV crews were, reporting how bad it was, but the government wasn't getting aid. If that starts to happen later in this week, then, all bets are off on both sides.
Yeah, the one
I want to ask
Mark, can I just one quick point on the logistics of this? I've already talked to a couple people down in North Carolina in the last 24 hours who don't have power. And I think that when you, again, being completely crass, when you talk about communications to them in these final days, how long do they go without power? That's mail, that's digital, that's TV ads. So it's their well-being, but it's also the campaigns have a lot invested in these final 5 days in communicating with them that's going to get taken off the board.
Yeah, they got to get the power back on for human sake. All right. If you want to get in the conversation, please raise your electronic hand. I see some hands up already. As always, we like new people. As always, peace, love, and understanding is the ethos here to try to communicate and learn. All right, we're going to skip a bunch of stuff because I want to get to questions, but I do want to show 2 ads. First is a new ad from Future Forward, which is one of the big pro-Harris super PACs. Let's look at that, please.
I know 20 of you and you're rich as hell. We're going to give you tax cuts. We're going to pay.
I'm not rich as hell. I'm the one that really needs the break, not the people that are already rich and have the money. The 1% don't serve anybody but themselves. So for them to get a tax break, no, that's not cool. Kamala Harris is going to make billionaires pay their fair share, and she's going to cut taxes for working people like me. I'm Buddy, and I'm not rich as hell, and I'm voting for Kamala Harris.
FFPAC is responsible for the content of this ad.
All right, Sean, first, 2 things I want to note, and then love just your mini critique. One is interesting that Elon Musk is now in both Republican and Democratic ads as a hero and a villain. And then 2, interesting choice that I have a black narrator, black hero in that ad, just obviously purposeful. So what do you think of that ad, Sean?
I mean, I like him. He's a good guy. He comes across authentic. I think people can relate to that. I think there's a lot baked in here, meaning that I think people know what Trump's policies are. They know how rich he is. They know the words that he says. But overall, I think that they chose the right person, the right messenger. Obviously, they have a problem with black men. So good target audience, good overall. I give it an A minus.
All right. Never go wrong with the narrator named Buddy. Dan.
Yeah, I'll give it an A plus. It is a great ad. I mean, there was the story over the weekend, or I think end of last week, David Plouffe talking about how they have an advantage on who cares about people like you, and they're trying to maximize that advantage. That ad screams to that. I mean, I know it wasn't officially the campaign's ad, but she is on your side. I mean, even Trump has always been sensitive to appearing to give tax breaks to the rich. He's talked about protecting Social Security and, my tax cuts are for the middle class. So it's a great ad that shows she's on the side of working class people.
You're both right. It's a great ad, but you're both wrong, buzzer, if we have it, because as great an ad as it is, it's not going viral, right? There's nothing in that ad that's going to go viral. And to me, if you're going to make a great ad, particularly with 35 days left to go, I said 40 before, whatever it is, it's got to go viral. No one's going to be talking about that ad. It's a great ad, but to me, you got to have something viral to get A minus or A plus. All right. This ad could go viral, I think, maybe. Let's look at this new Trump video. We're not sure it's an ad, but let's look at this Trump video.
Greatness doesn't discriminate. It doesn't see where you're from, what you look like, or who you know. Greatness is for those who work for it, for those who keep moving forward. Greatness is for anyone willing to fight for it.
Points out if it doesn't say I'm Donald Trump and I approve this message, it's not something they're airing on broadcast television, but it has viral capacity as far as I'm concerned because it has huggy Trump and fight Trump. So Dan, what's your letter grade for that one?
I'll give it an A minus. It's a great ad. I mean, it's cute, it's catchy, it does humanize them. It's a softer ad. I'm not sure how many people will ultimately see Trump in a softer light, but for what they're trying to do, it's a great ad.
Trump,
Yeah.
Sean, I like the notion of some ad maker going to the former president saying, "We want to do an ad with you as a cartoon hugging."
Yeah. Well, guess what? Here's the thing. That ad takes off of a one that they did a couple months ago that was some random dude did it. It went completely viral. And I think that this is either the same person or the Trump campaign saying, hey, look at how many views that got. And at the end of the day, Trump gets that. If you can walk into him and say, when this ad went out, it got 150 million views, I don't think he's going to go, great, go for it. So I'm just saying, I think that there's something like that went really well last time, and I can see it happening again.
I knew I was under mark.
All right. Hold on one second. Not sure what that was. Stephen, welcome in. We'll go to your questions now. Raise your hand if you, like Stephen, would like to be part of the conversation. Stephen, tell everybody where you are, who you're supporting, and what's on your mind after you unmute. I need you to unmute. Hit the yes or whatever it is. There you go. Stephen, one more time. There you go. Again, tell everybody where you are, who you're supporting, what's on your mind, and thank you for joining.
I live in a small, very Republican village in West Michigan. I would have supported Eisenhower, but I didn't reach voting age until 1966. As it turns out, I've always voted Democrat for president. I consider myself a centrist, but the right has stretched so much further to the right since the 60s. I now look like a liberal. I'm supporting Harris because she appears to be the only immediate roadblock to a candidate who I believe has a natural attraction to despotic behavior that would lead us to an autocracy. I have two questions.
Yep. Before you ask your two, thank you for joining. Who are you voting for in your Senate race?
I'm going to vote Democratic.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead with your two questions, please. Thank you.
This is mainly for the affable Sean with a great sense of humor. What is your personal sense of what Donald Trump's vision is for America? And two, should character be the most important consideration in selecting our president, or should policy take precedence over character?
All right, John, do the second one first, because that'll be shorter.
Yeah, I think policy matters more than anything. I think both parties have sent us candidates that, can give a good speech, can say that they believe in certain things, but at the end of the day, policy trumps everything else. You're either going to do what you said you were going to do and have results or not. I also believe fundamentally to your question, the first part of your question, as I've said multiple times, I mean, the two fundamental issues for a country are, keeping us safe and keeping us prosperous. We've got to continue. I mean, you have to be safe and you have to be able to grow. And I think based on Trump's record as president, he checks both of those boxes, and that's what he wants more than anything. I mean, he wants a country that's safe and he wants a country that's growing and prosperous. And so I don't think that there's any question in my mind who has got the track record to move the country forward.
Okay. Stephen, how'd you find us?
I've watched you for a long time, and I can't remember how, but it's been a long time, a couple of years.
All right.
Eisenhower.
Thank you, Steve.
Yeah.
Since Eisenhower. Stephen, thank you. Great questions. The chat loved them. So thank you for coming in. Join us regularly. Go blue, as they say. All right, David, please come in. Tell folks where you are, who you're supporting, what's on your mind. Because some people don't know.
Oregon, supported Trump 3 times. I was thinking, I have not voted for him in a primary, so that our primaries don't matter. But I have a what if question. If there is a semi blowout in this election, one way or the other, what kind of backlash is that going to put against Pelosi? Although I'm not sure she's going to retire soon. The Bidens. So if there's a blowout against Kamala. Excuse me. Yeah, Kamala. Is that what kind of backlash would that have on the Democrats who kind of pushed Biden out and really paved his way to get there? Because Hillary kind of had the same road. They really elbowed her way up there. Is there going to be some backlash against them and vice versa?
Wait, David, can you I'm just to get clarity. Are you saying if she wins big, what kind of backlash they're going to
if she loses big, and same thing if Trump loses big, I think we know what's going to happen there. I mean, it's the Republican Party is going to try to rebuild, without Trump, which some of us. I love his policies. It's a lot, but I love his policies. But anyway,
so let me take this first. Sorry, Dan. I think that there's this misconception of if Trump were to lose big, that somehow the bottom line is that the America First MAGA movement will continue. I mean, there's no question in my mind. This isn't a cult of personality. It will continue. What Trump's influence over it will, and who takes the mantle, is a whole separate discussion. But I think this idea of like a bunch of people coming for a meeting at the RNC and saying, "Okay, guys, like we got to retrench," ain't happening. This party has moved in a direction, and I think people are tired of conservatives that pay lip service. So that's my 2 cents on that. I think this idea that there's going to be this big confab at the Willard when it's all done, and people are going to go, "Okay, let's go back to Mitt Romney," is a very, very misheated conception. On the Harris thing, I think it's an interesting question. I still don't know that it would come back on Biden or Pelosi, because I don't believe, and I think obviously Dan's the better one to ask on this, but I don't believe that anybody believes that Biden would have been stronger than her. Every statistic proves that Harris, people were excited and happy with him. So I don't see it coming back for anyone to blame. They might have said, "If I wish it were sooner," or something like that. But I think the party, at least from the Dems that I know, think that he did the right thing and are appreciative of it and aren't going to get mad at him. They might say, "Gosh, I wish he had done it a month earlier." But the bigger of a blowout that it is, they're not going to blame her. They might say that there should have been a primary. Anyway, that's my only 2 cents.
I mean, Sean, I think you were going there. I don't think they'll be angry at Pelosi and co. that they pushed Biden out. I think people will be angry with Biden. And if they're angry with Pelosi and Schumer, it's that they didn't make this move a year and a half ago to have.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, okay. To have a competitive primary. It's not that they pushed him out. I think Sean's right. Everybody now realizes what a lot of people kind of knew behind closed doors, which is that Biden wasn't really capable of doing this, of running, a competitive campaign. So if she loses, I think, frankly, even if she loses in a nail biter, the recrimination will be almost as intense. That if she had more time, woulda, coulda, shouldas.
That was the funny part. By the way, just so we're clear, that was the funny part of the SNL skit. So everyone thinks that,
Yes, it was funny. David, thank you, man. Thanks for coming in. Appreciate it. Curtis, tell folks who don't know where you are, who you're supporting. Tell us what's on your mind, please.
I mean, I'm a Harris supporter. I just wanted to talk about that last point that he made, or Sean made about, I mean, I feel like there will be at least a little bit of a reformation if Trump loses. I mean, sure that there's a wing of that party that will have, still staunch views, but I think every time that a party loses, doesn't it go through a certain amount of, thought process? I mean, it went through it with Mitt Romney. It went through it with George Bush, all of those things. I mean, if he,
Curtis, you're absolutely right. I mean, I actually, if you had asked me this question a few years ago, I might have had a very different answer. And you're absolutely right. Historically speaking, both parties, when you look at the churn that occurs, it's like a massive family fight where the family gets together sometime around Thanksgiving and says, guys, we blew it. We got to retool. The difference is that I think one of the things that Trump did for folks on the right was gave us a sense that we didn't have to be complacent and settle, right? There was always this sense among Republicans that we were settling. We were taking a John McCain or a Mitt Romney or even a George Bush and saying, okay, that's the best we can do. And I think that Trump broke a mold for a lot of people and said, screw it, you can fight, you can actually go after. I mean, and I think that when you go out and do a grassroots event, whether it's a rally or a sign thing or a phone banking, there is a group of folks that I had never seen in my entire, upbringing in Republican politics that is engaged in the party, and they feel emboldened and they're not going anywhere. And so Donald Trump may exit the stage, which, by the way, he may not run again, but he's not going anywhere. And I think that's the faithful are going to continue. I can't see a situation where, I know Donald Trump said on that Cheryl Atkinson program he wouldn't run again, but that doesn't mean he's not going to be involved. And I think he will be heavily involved.
But you don't think that there will be
a candidate in a primary is still powerful.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. I didn't catch the beginning.
Yeah, sorry.
Who's talking?
Dan.
Sorry.
Dan, go ahead, Dan.
I just said that being the MAGA candidate in a Republican primary is still the winning formula versus being the moderate.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, Curtis, thank you. Appreciate it. Who do you think is going to win the election, Curtis?
I still do think Harris is going to win. I think that Republicans will take the Senate, but I think that Harris will take the presidential race. So,
all right, thank you, man. Thanks for joining. All right, so Sean and Dan, welcome Dan back again for this first episode tonight at 6:30 Eastern. I'll be back, but before that, at 5 Eastern, my colleague Lauren Leader will have a program on the politics of abortion. The president and CEO of Planned Parenthood Action Fund, Alexis McGill Johnson, will be there, as well as journalist Amanda Becker of the 19th. That's at 5 tonight. And then at 6:30 tonight, I'll be back for a little mini episode, 6:30. Probably we'll go to about 7 to talk about the day's events, particularly related to the aftermath of the hurricane. Tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern time, Dan, Sean, and I will be back for the morning meeting. And yes, we will stream on YouTube right on time. Sorry about that earlier today for those of you who were nice enough to tell me through social media or directly to me that we had a little bit of a late start. Thank you for that. And then tomorrow night, after the vice presidential debate, we'll have some sort of program, TBD. Stay tuned for the details of that. I think you'll enjoy it. In addition, Wednesday, we'll be back for another edition of this program. That'll be episode 3 of season 2. Sean, what's something you're watching today besides the storm aftermath?
I'm going to be watching just sort of the expectation games on the VP debate, how the campaigns are setting it up, who they're planning on sending out for surrogates.
Dan?
I'm going to be watching Joe Biden's performance today and whether he can kind of, carry the ball or whether it's going to fall on Harris a lot.
All important, but I'll be watching the potential beginning of World War III in the Middle East.
Can I make
as Israel potentially sends ground troops into Lebanon. Yes, sir.
One quick point to Dan. I think this is going to be interesting to watch the role that Harris plays, because you got to be careful about how much you get involved, because now she needs to figure out how do I look like I'm engaged, but also that I don't own this, because you start going down the trail of I own this or I'm going to be there. It makes it a lot harder to go. I'm going to go campaign in Arizona. So I think Dan's point is really well taken, because how she projects herself is a really interesting balancing act in the next 24 hours.
It's a correlate to the famous Colin Powell line. If you try to fix it, you own it, right? She makes it seem like she's running the thing. So we'll see. I'll be curious what happens in her photo op, and we'll talk about that at 6:30. Thank you all for watching. Appreciate it. Dan, again, glad to have you. We'll see everybody 5 tonight, 6:30 tonight, 9 a.m. tomorrow after the debate. Thank you for joining. We'll see you soon.